Okay, so last day we were having some interesting discussion related to spread of fake news, and we will continue with that. So if you recall, we stopped here where we were trying to define formally what is fake news, and we saw that it is first of all a news item. The okay, some of the things have got somehow erased. So it's a news item in the first place. It is false in nature, and the intention is typically bad. Okay, now you might have come across many different closely related names. For instance, say disinformation, misinformation, rumor. Okay, so all of these things are kind of like related concepts, and it is good to have a clear picture of what is what. So the next thing that I show you here is a very nice, I mean, I would say one of the best categorizations that I found, um, like that tells you like what is what. So basically, you look into three dimensions: the authenticity, the intention, and whether it's a news or not. So of course, as I have already said, that fake news, its authenticity is false, intention is bad, and it's a news item. False news is authenticity is false, intention is not known, and it's of course again a news. Satire, its authenticity is unknown, intention is typically not bad, okay, and of course it's a news. Now disinformation, so disinformation is very similar to fake news, except for the fact that it's not a news. Okay, it could be any piece of information. It's not formally a news, any piece of information, but having very similar qualities as that of fake news. Now misinformation is slightly like on the better side of it, because its intention is unknown. Okay, it's not proven to be bad always. Okay, it could be bad, it could be harmless, it could be, you don't know, good at sometimes, it's hard to imagine, but there might be such cases. And then for rumor, all these three attributes are unknown. Okay, you don't really know whether it's true or false, you don't know whether the intention is good or bad, and of course it could be a news item, it may not be a news item. So all of these are dicey. So basically, this is like a very nice categorization, and I think many of you who are working in this area, probably some of you are doing something very related in your BTech projects, some of you are working in the term projects that have been floated. So keeping this picture in mind is it comes very handy. In general, also as a general audience of news, keeping this categorization is usually helpful. Okay, so now as I was telling you last day, so there are predominantly two different broad schemes of things that we are going to discuss. In fact, three broad schemes of things that we are going to discuss, like which can enable one to basically identify a fake news, or at least characterize a fake news in the first place. So one of them is knowledge based. The second one is style based. Something strange is happening. I don't understand what. So here style means linguistic or writing style. Okay, and the third one is propagation based. Basically, how the news or information spreads in an online world. So these are the three different ways in which one would try to typically characterize fake news. So we will talk a little bit more about the style based and the propagation based stuff, because these are very fundamental theories and have been existing there for a very long time. Now, there are different sorts of hypotheses that kind of work while you are dealing with falsity, false news, or sometimes it's also called fantasy, um, like something that is non-factual in nature. Okay, so some of the very well-known style-based fundamental theories are the following: the Andausch hypothesis, the reality monitoring, and the four-factor theory. So what does the Andausch hypothesis tells? Like, we will look into a full paper designed around this idea of Andausch hypothesis, which the authors will use for fake news detection efficiently. So we will look into that, but just as a prelim, let us understand what is Andausch hypothesis. So basically, what it says is that factual stuffs actually should be very different in their content as well as in the quality of the content from fantasy. Like here, fantasy typically refers to something which is fake. Okay, so that is about uh, like um, Andausch hypothesis. So basically, like the writing style, the way different parts of speech, the dependency structure of the different parts of speech on one another through grammar rules, and the semantics, the underlying semantics, all this would be typically different between something that is factual and something that is fake. So that is what is all about the Andausch hypothesis. The second one is a little more motor and perceptory related things. So basically what it says is that the way real stuff actually like stimulates your sensory perceptual like responses are not the same uh, for a fake news, for a piece of fake item. Okay, so real items would uh, like trigger different sensory perceptual levels compared to something that is fake. Okay, so that's the second thing, that is what is about reality monitoring. And the third one again is very important. So what it says is that lies are expressed differently in terms of their arousal level. Okay, so the control of the behavior, the emotion, etc., um, are very different when a lie is spoken compared to when some truth is like revealed. So basically, probably many of you are also able to already connect. This actually form the fundamentals of building modern day lie detectors. Basically, the idea is that the arousal levels and the control on the behavior of a person, the arousal of different emotions, etc. So all these are very different. Uh, in case of lies as compared to in case of some true fact. Okay, so that is so these are some of the very well-known theories under the style-based like characterizations of fake news. On the other hand, there are similar like observations or similar types of hypotheses that have been developed in the propagation-based theories. Okay, so the first one among this is a backfire effect. So what does this say? Is that if you try to show someone something that does not like align with the inclination of that person, with the internal emotions or the internal belief system of that person, then this might backfire and the person might start even more strongly disbelieving whatever you are showing. Okay, so basically this is the thing. So for instance, say you show a news item to a person P, and this person P has a belief B, and say the news item has a belief or is a proponent of a belief which is different from the belief B. In fact, it's opposite to belief B. In this case, what happens is that if this kind of repeated exposures, the person might be so staunch, it could be a person, it could be a group, the person might be so staunch that they would start actually rejecting all such news items. Okay, so and this they would start rejecting more strongly than earlier. So this is the backfire effect. The conservatism bias, this is something that I have also told you earlier, very close to the confirmation bias. So basically, you show a news item which kind of differs from the belief of the person, but then the person is still not fully, willing to accept this new belief, even though when you are showing facts and figures. Okay, so it's like a uh, basically the person doesn't want to switch beliefs, and even after showing a lot of evidences against the belief that he or she holds, the person does not really get moderated much. So of course this is slightly weaker than the previous hypothesis. And then there is this Semmelweis reflex. So basically, this is something that I have also told you earlier. So if there is a normative thing existing in the society and some new challenging idea comes in, so people tend to be very hesitant in believing this new challenging idea. This has all happened all through the history of science. All of you probably have come across this kind of anecdotal evidences like every now and then when you studied history of science. So basically, like starting from the days of Galileo, etc., everywhere you see this kind of situation arising now and then, that what is normative is thought to be true. Okay, and any rebel against what is normative is like initially rejected, and a lot of like strong fight need to be done, strong fight and stronger evidence need to be gathered in order to like prove the point. Okay, so uh, in the propagation theory, there is one thing that is very important, and I guess like this is not very hard to believe, is that you know if the fake news has propagated deep into the network, then it is very very difficult to ameliorate the effect of the fake news. Okay, uh, so therefore, if you have to mitigate or if you have to contain fake news, then that has to be done at the early stages. So therefore, so the first step in ameliorating the effects of fake news would be to detect the fake news. Okay, and so therefore, detection in fake news only has meaning whenever it is done early, and the earlier the better. So basically this has to be kept in mind, that if like things are allowed to propagate deep into the network, then people's belief system are so strong that you will never be able to uh, like uh, curb the ill effects of that fake news anymore, because all the harms that was to be done or that were to be done had already been done. Okay, so therefore the only way to go about it is to stop fake news in the early stages, and where there comes the active support of computer scientists and data scientists like us. So basically, if you have to do an automation, if you have to automatically detect fake news, then it has to be done early. So what do you think immediately would be a challenge if you have to do early detection? What according to you would be a challenge? Immediate challenge that you can think of. So you have, say, I give you the option of early detection, and the other one is late detection. This is not of much use, but like suppose like I give you these two options. Which one do you think is harder? Which one is a harder problem and why?
Early detection would be harder because we don't have propagation information like as
Very
much
good.
as.
So basically, early detection becomes very hard because we do not have enough evidence to build ML models. So basically what will we do? We will train some ML model, typically a supervised framework, and then based on that, we will try to classify something as fake news and something as not. But then if the data itself is too small, so in the early stages, data will be very small. And say suppose somebody tells you to detect whether something is fake news within the first 1 hour, like even 24 hours might be too late, too late. So somebody tells you to detect fake news within the first 1 hour of the publication of the news. So that would be much harder than, like, say, if you are asked to do the same detection like after half a day. So because like you definitely have more data to make your prediction stronger when you have half day of data, okay, compared to when you have just 1 hour of data. So this is why early detection is very challenging, and like therefore there are certain circumventing approaches that one needs to take up in order to execute early detection, and we will see some of these. Okay, so now we come to the formal stages or formal mechanisms of fake news detection. So I had already told you that we are going to talk about these three very important categories of fake news detection. The first one being based on knowledge base, the second one being based on writing style. Basically, in the computer sciences literature, this is more about, the second one is more about, okay, let me give you the computer science based names. Okay, so this is about fact checking. The second one is about content based schemes. And the third one is about epidemic models of prediction. Okay, so these are the three basic building blocks of fake news detection, and we are going to look into each of these in certain details. So the first form is the knowledge-based fake news detection. So look at this picture. This is a very nice like uh, aggregation of all the ideas, at least the first three, uh, even the fourth one. So knowledge based, style based, propagation based, and credibility based. Credibility means how credible or how truthful or how trustworthy the news is, or the person posting the news is. So they have, you see, they have coded each of them with a separate geometric symbol. Okay, so now and then they are going through the three primary stages of the life cycle of a news. The first stage is the creation, the second stage is the publication, and the third stage is the propagation. So in the creation stage, what are the possible places where fake news uh, like detection would be required, and what kind of methods could be used in such cases is what is that they are showing in this picture. So basically, if you look at the headline, okay, so the headline could benefit, the check on the headline could benefit from credibility based, credibility based, knowledge based, and propagation based. Okay, so can you give me some example, like how the check of headline could be done, like for credibility? So suppose you have to do a credibility check of the headline. What would you do as a design engineer? What would you check? Think aloud. There are multiple such attributes that you can check. Tell me one. None. None that you can think of. So this is the stage where a news article is being written, right? At this creation stage, there is a possibility to do a like fake news uh, check by checking the headline. Of course, you can also check the body, etc. But headline is one important place which you can check. So let's take the headline example and discuss. Like you can then generalize it into other uh, parts. So the clue is given in the picture itself. You are not seeing the picture properly. So
The
the
knowledge,
credibility,
style, and credibility both.
is associated in this particular stage. It is associated with the editor or the writer or the reporter of this news. Okay, that's that's where the credibility based check comes in, like how reliable the reporter is, how reliable the editor is who is presenting this news or who is creating this news. So suppose mass media articles from this editor usually are fake, so then you have higher reasons to believe that this particular article also like with this specific headline is going to be fake. What about style? So how style comes in here?
Sensationalism, like
Very good. So do you know the journalistic name for this sensationalism? There is a very interesting journalistic word. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. I'm 100% sure that you have heard about it. Heard about clickbaits?
Yes, sir.
What are clickbaits? Anybody
Articles that
volunteers?
like the title is so irresistible that you can't resist
Yeah, the
clicking it.
title is so irresistible and in fact, in many cases misguiding that you can't resist clicking it. So basically like it would be like, click on this article and it is going to change your life and see how it is going to change your life. These kind of things like, she looked into, she peeped into the door and found, and then dot dot dot, so things like that. So something that like arouses deep interest in the reader's mind as to click on the news article and um, read it, which in many cases has no bearing, where the content of the news has in many cases has absolutely no bearing with the headline. Okay, and why do you think that this is in, I mean, this is a strategy that is used by the fake news mongers? Why clickbaits are in place? Like, what is the biggest advantage of putting such clickbaity headlines?
To improve traffic.
To improve traffic.
Traffic.
Okay, yeah. So you're very correct. So basically, to increase click-throughs. To increase click-throughs of this article. Now, how is disadvantageous? We discussed this last day, right? Improve search ranks. So this is the basic idea behind putting clickbaity headlines. So similarly, at the publication stage also, like, you have various ways to detect the like, fake news characteristics, like who is the publisher, that's one thing. The kind of people who are writing feedback, how credible they are, okay, and then and how it has propagated, okay, and then comes the propagation stage, where you have a lot of entities or a lot of dimensions to look for. Okay, so one is, as we said, the feedback. Okay, and then there is another thing which is very important, and this is something that we are going to take up an individual work and study, where we will see like how the authors like uh, specifically studied the propagation path of the news in order to characterize the news to be a fake news. Okay, so fake news, or in this particular example that we are going to study, they were talking about rumors. So basically, they used this propagation path and the structure of this propagation path, basically this propagation tree, if you think of it. So this propagation tree, their hypothesis was that the propagation tree for a fake news item and realistic news item, this would be very different. The tree structures would be very, very different. And based on this hypothesis, they developed their algorithm. And that is a very interesting work that we are going to look into. So where we will have a detailed understanding like how propagation based structures can help you detect fake news at an early stage. Okay. So now, so as I said, the first type of fake news detection that we are going to talk about is about like knowledge-based fake news detection, and this has mostly business with fact checking. So basically, what you try to do here is you try to check the authenticity of a news by comparing the news item that you are just now seeing with already established facts. Okay, with already established facts stored in some form of a database, which is usually called a knowledge base. So basically, on one side, you have a knowledge base, KB for short, and you have this news item that has come in, and you try to make a comparison. And based on this comparison, you flag the news item to be fake or real. Okay, so the news item, from the news item, you extract certain attributes. We'll talk about what attributes we extract. So you extract certain attributes, and then you compare these attributes with the already existing like knowledge that is residing in the knowledge base, or already existing knowledge or fact that is residing in the knowledge base. And based on this comparison, based on the success or the failure of this comparison, you trigger a news item as fake or real. Okay, now this fact checking, this idea is also called fact checking. So basically, the name is drawn from the idea that a knowledge base is a list of facts, and you are comparing this list of facts with the uh, extracted attributes from a news item that has come in, and like from there you are making a decision. So uh, so that is why the name fact checking. And there are again two different mechanisms or schemes of fact checking. One is manual fact checking, and the other one is automatic fact checking. Okay, so here, like the manual fact checking is like good in the sense that the ground truth is already available to you and has been manually annotated. Okay, the facts have been manually generated basically. So in this case, the facts have been manually populated. Facts manually populated into the KB. Okay, and automatic fact checking is where you try to automatically construct knowledge bases. Okay, so this is the difference. Here the facts are manually populated, fine, and here the facts are automatically populated using some algorithms. You first extract facts from certain sources, from certain reliable sources. You extract facts, and once you have been able to extract enough facts, you populate them in a KB. So this is the whole pipeline is automatic. So now, as you can understand, the quality of the manual facts or manually entered facts would be much better, because these are done by typically human annotators. So this is going to be much better. However, this would not scale. Okay, so it will be mostly incomplete. Whereas automatic fact checking on the other side is like it would scale nicely, because like since it's an automatic algorithm, the more number of resources you bring in, the more facts could be extracted and populated in the database. But then this is going to be noisy. So sometimes what people do is they also think of a hybrid approach, where the first step is automatic, and then there is a second step where there is a human in the loop, or there are many human in the loop who kind of filter the automatically generated facts. Okay, so now manual fact checking again can be broken into two parts. One is like expert based manual fact checking, and the other one is crowd based. So as you can understand, for uh, expert based manual fact checking, you need to appoint experts. Now, what does that mean? That you will need like people who are proficient in knowledge base management. They have a good linguistic skill. They have an idea of like what are the what are like important facts that can be extracted from a document. So all this knowledge need to be there for this kind of experts who have been working in this area for say last 5 to 10 years. So that is like expert based fact checking. Okay, on the other hand, there could be crowd based fact checking, where you employ a larger population of crowds, but not all of them are experts. In fact, most of them are non experts, but you give them some very basic training, and based on that you ask them to populate your knowledge bases. Okay, so as you can understand, each of them have their own goods and bads, own pros and cons. So for the expert fact checkers, it's easy to manage because there are less people, credibility is really very high, and like there are quite a few number of resources that are already available in the fact checking world, which are like expert guided knowledge bases. Whereas on the other side, like in crowdsourced situations, it's not very easy to manage because there are a lot of people. You need to have an agreement between these people. People might not agree on what is a fact and what is not a fact while doing this annotation. So therefore, you have difficulty in managing and getting an agreement among people. Credibility, of course, is poor, but then scalability is much larger than the expert based one, because you cannot have like hundreds of experts working for you. That will be extremely costly, and in fact probably even if you put a lot of money, it might not be possible to get so many experts in the first place agreeing to work on that project. So but on the other side, so there has been consolidated drives to build this expert based fact checkers, especially because a lot of like political agenda was hidden in this kind of fact checking initiatives. So therefore, like people tried to build these manual fact checkers, expert based manual fact checkers, with a lot of money flowing into it, sometimes even like state money flowing into it. However, this is not true for the crowd based fact checkers. So some of the very well known manually curated fact checkers are PolityFact. I guess some of you have already known about some of the names. PolityFact, FactCheck. I guess you have heard about some of them. Okay. At least these two are very well known, PolityFact and FactCheck. So this is primarily American politics related stuffs. And like there are different assessment levels, like true, mostly true, half true, mostly false, etc., etc. Okay, so the fact check is again about American politics, but then the content. So here the content is mostly statements made by politicians. Here the content could be TV ads, debates, speeches. It's more multimodal in nature. Okay, and here the classes are more simple, like it's true, no evidence, or false. So basically this is like you cannot tell apart between what is whether it's true or false. Okay, then there are other fact checking initiatives which are not only politics, but then there could be social and topical issues, there could be religion, there could be health. Health is a very important domain where there is a lot of misinformation and fake news are there. In fact, we ourselves have some works in this domain, like where we show like how health news gets exaggerated, like just to get more publicity. So basically, and you see across all these databases or across all these knowledge bases, the labels that you have are highly varying. Okay, so somewhere it's like 2 to 3 levels, to somewhere it's like 8 to 10 levels. Like this one is especially interesting, like Pinocchio, 2 Pinocchio, 3 Pinocchio. I don't really know what are these, but probably these are like less confidence in the news, and it grows like that way. So of course, like one can um, mm, question as to why each of these have so many variety in their labels. But then, like, you have to remember that each of them, or each of these project were undertaken under a specific requirement, and based on that requirement, the labels have been guided. Okay, so any Indian counterpart that you know of, or that you follow? Which regularly does a fact checking? None that you know of. In fact, many media houses have started to have their own fact checkers. Like, I know Dainik Jagaran has its own fact checker, but then there is a very well known one. Okay, so this is your homework. Find out a very prominent fact checking org of India. So I'll in a few minutes I'll give you a break. Once we come back from the break, you are going to tell me. Okay. So now we will switch to the automatic fact checking, which is like of more interest for from a computer science point of view or a computational point of view, and it is a better choice, of course, from the perspective of scalability. So then, basically, if you have to do an automatic fact checking, you have to somehow represent knowledge, okay, or represent facts in the computer. So basically, you have to represent facts, represent knowledge, and therefore you need operational definitions for each of these. Unless you have operational definition for each of these, it is difficult to go for a fully computational approach in order to like identify or build an automatic fact checker. Okay, so basically there are 3 questions that we will answer slowly, step by step: how to represent knowledge, how to obtain known facts or ground truth, and how to compare the uh, ground truth with the newly extracted knowledge from some news item. So basically, any automatic fact checking system will have 2 parts, okay, 2 subparts. One is the fact extraction, and the other is the fact check. So basically, in the fact extraction part, what you do is you use the entire web or subset of the web to extract knowledge. Now, once you have extracted some raw facts, then you do certain filtering. So, a lot of different types of filtering are done, starting from like redundancy reduction. We will talk about each of this in bits and pieces. Then invalidity reduction, conflict resolution, credibility improvement, completeness enhancement. So all these things are done in order to make this raw facts into fine-tuned, or let's say refined facts. Now, once you have the refined facts, you go on and store them in a knowledge base. Okay. And now when a new news article comes in, you compare, as I said, you compare your knowledge base facts with the attributes extracted from the new news article, and then you spit out a score, say some authenticity index, and based on this authenticity index, like some threshold value of this authenticity index, you either call it a fake news or call it a you either call it a fake news or a real news. Okay, so these are the two major parts of any fact checking um, algorithm. The first is fact extraction and the second is fact checking. Now, how do you represent knowledge? So this is a very important like step in order to formalize the rest of the understanding. So this is where we are starting to operationalize our definition of knowledge and known facts. Okay. So you know who is this? Anybody knows who is this? No one knows who is this. Let me make it a little bigger to help you. Who is this? How many of you have watched Big Bang Theory? Anybody?
Sir, it's Mr. Spock from Star Trek.
Yes, and what is his original name? He is one of the most favorite characters of Sheldon. What is his original name?
I'm not sure.
Leonard Nimoy. Okay, so why this fun stuff? Okay, so we'll see in a moment. So basically, when you try to represent a knowledge or a form of a knowledge, you typically do it using a triple called an SPO triple, which has the subject, the predicate, and the object. Okay, so you break each piece of information into a subject, a predicate, and an object, and you store them in the knowledge base as SPO triples. So, for instance, if we have a statement like this, that Leonard Nimoy was an actor who played the character Spock in the science fiction movie Star Trek, then from this particular statement, or from this particular factual statement rather, you can have multiple SPO triples extracted. Some of these are noted on this left hand side. Okay, for instance, you can say Leonard Nimoy is an actor and the predicate is profession. Leonard Nimoy starred in Star Trek. Leonard Nimoy played Spock. Spock is a character in Star Trek. Star Trek is a genre in science fiction. Okay, so in this way, so these are all SPO triples. So in this way, using SPO triples, you can store the uh, knowledge or the information or like the ground truth facts in a knowledge base. But typically people don't store it like, in rows like this. What they preferably do is to construct a graph like this. So this graph actually allows you to build long distance relationships. Okay, so for instance, as you see here, Leonard Nimoy played Spock, is a character in Star Trek, starred in Star Trek, is a science fiction. Star Wars is also, so in this way you see Star Trek and Star Wars get connected. Star Wars get connected. Okay, Star Wars is also a science fiction, and then there is some character in Star Wars uh, who played Alice Guinness, and this Alice Guinness starred in. So Alice Guinness played this role, and Alice Guinness starred in Star Wars, and so on and so forth. Okay, so in this way, you build long distance relationships between like different SPO triples. So therefore, there is an advantage of storing the SPO triples as a knowledge graph. So this is sometimes also called a KG or a knowledge graph. Okay, as a knowledge graph rather than just a simple row of records, series of records as a knowledge base. Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll take a 10 minutes break, and we come back at 9:06. And at that time, I want an answer for the homework that I have given you. And then from there on, we will start off.